We are all hoping that the old way of doing business in Washington is over and that the status quo has ended. We are entering what could be a new era in our country. So, with much happening in the nation's capital, I wanted to expand beyond our weekly hour-long podcast to bring you short chats with key players in Washington, from the Senate to the House to President Trump's administration. These discussions will dive into the latest on legislation that's making its way through Congress and the efforts within the administration to drive the MAHA agenda forward. I want to bring these back to you, the American people. Today, my guest is Senator Tommy Tuberville, or as his friends call him, Coach. We discussed the mental health crisis in America. We discussed empowering parents and children. And most importantly, we discussed the upcoming RFK Jr. confirmation Senate hearing. Senator Tommy Tuberville, co-founder of the MAHA caucus in the U.S. Senate, has been a steadfast advocate for the values we hold close. He's a true champion for the causes that matter most to us. And so without further ado, I want to share with you today's conversation with Senator Tuberville. I mean, let's get right into the dynamics. I was on with Megyn Kelly and we were discussing Mike Pence's recent coming out against Bobby. Initially, he claimed it was due to his pro-life stance, but then we later realized that it's around some of the vaccine issues, and then also claims around, he quoted Wi-Fi, but I think what he meant to say was concerns around EMF exposure on cellular metabolic health. And I think it's a little bit misguided to be both pro-life, but ignoring the impact of vaccine injury, especially on children and women of childbearing age.
Yeah, I've got my first granddaughter, Rosie Grace, coming in about a month, and I've sat down with my son and his wife, and we've talked about the vaccines that they give these kids, immediately after being born. And I've actually talked to Robert Kennedy about what he's thought. He's given me phone numbers to call to do actually research, the right research about all these vaccines. And it's really we have good vaccines. Obviously, I've taken them as a young kid, polio and all those things coming up, but it's gotten way out of kilter of the things that these kids are taking at a very young age. And I think vaccines are good, but I think at the end of the day that humans should not be guinea pigs. And that's what we've been in the past. And a lot of these vaccines is they try it on humans to see if it actually works or doesn't work and what effects it we have. And I don't think our government's doing enough oversight on this.
And vaccines will be better the more scrutiny we put on them. And that is precisely what we're hoping to do right now, is to put more scrutiny on the development, research, qualifications, safety, sensitive populations. I mean, that's all this is about. So to say that it's somehow meddling in the efficacy, it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, this is all about making sure that the vaccines that enter the market are both very safe and qualified. And if they aren't safe for certain populations, we're going to figure out who those populations are and why.
Exactly. And the big thing that we're having a problem with, me being here for 4 years, coming from a education and coaching background and being a United States Senator, I've seen the distrust from the American people towards government and towards anything that is related to the government, especially since COVID, the disaster that we went through there. But I think at the end of the day, the American people just want transparency. Just tell us the damn truth.
Yeah.
Don't dance around it. Don't try to do something that it's not. Be transparent. And but again, if we just go back to COVID and all the things that happened during COVID, you can understand where the American people are at on anything that we put in our bodies, whether it's a vaccine, whether it's food, whether it's a drug, any kind of medicine that we take. It's there is zero trust from the American people.
Yeah, they've lost a lot of trust, and I think that's our biggest threat. And to restore that trust, and I've heard from hundreds of thousands of people who have written, left comments, notes, hundreds of thousands of Americans. This is their number one topic. This is their number one area of concern. This is where they are mobilized on the ground in their communities. I mean, the number of families I've heard that have said, Nicole, we're really, really scared because even if we are somehow able to avoid getting this mRNA gene-based vaccination, the shedding concerns me because now there's evidence that the shedding from the vaccine itself can get into the bodies of people without their consent. And that to me is the piece that, I think that if more members of the Senate understood that, this is some of these vaccines, we just don't fully understand how they move through the population and how they impact the population, both in terms of the numbers, like we have population collapse, we have an increase in cancer rates amongst child bearing aged women, right? And those rates have skyrocketed past males. So there's something going on with how this is going to impact generations down the line, and we're already seeing it. We're seeing it in the numbers of the American public. And my question for you, Senator Tuberville, is, folks like Mitch McConnell, who really grew up thinking the polio vaccine was this incredible thing, and does he understand that the polio vaccine when he was a young man is different than the polio vaccine now?
Yeah, probably not. Everything looks, everybody, and, whether it's Senator McConnell or me or you or most people look at things that are black and white in terms of trust. That's the way it was, and that's the way it still is. But as you said, they change over the years. Their ingredients change. The makeup of something changes. So it's so important that we get somebody like Robert Kennedy in this position. I've met his nominee for CDC director and NIH director. It's a whole team of people that are going
That's
to be
wonderful.
involved, in making our food and our drugs healthy again. The thing about it, my 30-year-old son he's big into health. He was a college football player. He's really into what he eats, what he doesn't eat, and all those things. And this time last year, Robert Kennedy was the guy that he was really looking at of the importance of being their next president because what he stood for, and because that's what the younger generation look at. They want to have a healthy life, but they're just afraid that this generation is being thrown underneath the bus because they're kind of experimental rats, so to speak. Of hey, we got to produce more food, more drugs, and more quantity, but not looking at the quality. And I think we've got to listen to these young people. But I've got a lot of questions, and again, getting him through the nomination process and getting him in his position, I think that there's no doubt that his experience of research and writing books and talking to people is really going to help this country. I really don't think even some of my Senate colleagues understand how important his position is going to be, for the future of United States of America. I really don't.
It's probably the most important moment. We're at a fork in the road, and we are either going to be a nation that course corrects from the trajectory we're currently on. The trajectory we're currently on is we will be overthrown as a nation. There will not be the United States of America that you grew up in, not the one I grew up in either, unless we take the correct fork in this moment. And that moment is, scrutiny on why the cancer rates are rising, why the rates in autism are rising, why um, such a large population of young people aren't even qualified to serve in our military because they're so weak and sick. and it's a matter of national security, both as it relates to the military, but also the economy. We are looking at the numbers for treating the autistic population alone, and it's in the trillions of dollars over the next 50 years. I mean, by 2050, if we don't correct these rates, I mean, it will collapse this nation, and it
Over.
will result in I in such incredible devastation. We won't be able to operate the organizations, the businesses, the government, the military. I mean, every aspect of society is going to be impacted by a population that is functionally quite disabled. And I say these things because I know what it takes to raise a child with autism. I know it, very thoroughly. My daughter, is largely nonverbal. She presents with what's called classical autism, which is some of the sensory issues, the verbal issues, the social emotional challenges, and what is framed as intellectual disability, but it's actually slightly different. She's there. She just doesn't have the motor planning skills to be able to express her knowledge, which is very common amongst these kids. So you know, as a parent, you you try to extrapolate the numbers and the data to the reality, the daily realities of what it is like, to make sure these children get a good and humane experience in the world. And it is it this is going to fall on the government, and the government, I can't, from what I see, it's not prepared. We don't
No,
have a plan.
no, our healthcare system is going downhill because what's happened is since Obamacare, we're losing nurses, we're losing doctors, we're losing specialists. The one thing about I've seen in real time about the chemicals that we're giving our kids. Back when I first got into coaching, we'd bring 25 or 30 new players into my football team every year, and we would set them down and talk to them as their parents. You know, what kind of drugs are you on? I mean, are you taking, over the counter, any prescription drugs? And, up to about the year 2000 to maybe 2005, every once in a while you'd have somebody on whether it was insulin or whatever. But the last few years, up in probably from 2005 to 2015 or 16, over half the kids that you'd sit down with that you're bringing in were on Ritalin, Adderall. Uh, I mean, we are so chemically dependent, and it's now starting with our younger kids and all the attention deficit drugs, anything that that our parents used to handle without drugs. We've gotten away from that. It's everything is drug dependency, and we can't stay down this path because who knows what these drugs are going to do to you when after you get out of school and you continue to take those when you're 35, 40, 50 years old. There's got to be some kind of residual that they're going to get from taking all these drugs for so many years at a young age.
And wouldn't it be nice if HHS could disclose and research and put that information out there for parents and doctors?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wouldn't that be
They're not
nice?
they're not going to do that though. Again, it's we're in a age of, I would call, I guess we would call it dependency, not on parents but on chemicals. And again, these were all kids that I'd bring in at 17, 18 years old, and they'd been on these drugs forever. And ever since, whether it's elementary school, but again, it's just something that's going, it's not creeping up on us. It's going one day, it just explode on us. And again, as you said,
It's
our,
exploding on us now. I mean, the
yeah,
school shooters, if you look at the school shooters and you just take a sampling of them, a random sampling, almost all of them are on prescription medications that are designed for mental health treatment. And these individuals are somehow being led to do such an egregious act against humanity, the most innocent amongst us. children in a school setting. These school shootings, they're not because of issues around the Second Amendment at all. They're issues around how we medicate people in our country, young people in our country. And and it has to be studied.
Yeah, yeah.
Because taking
Don't
away,
don't get me started on the mental health problem, because I tell you what,
yeah,
I have seen kids' attitudes change. When I dealt with 120 a year for 35 years, and it was just devastating to watch it creep, and then just run into our system in terms of kids that were having problems. They really had problems. As you said, it's not a Second Amendment problem whatsoever. It is a mental health problem that we're having in this country that nobody wants to address, and it's getting worse and worse. You know what they want to do? They want to drug more and more drugs put in these kids instead of finding out really what in the world is going on. And it usually starts at home, social media, all the things now that we have at our disposal. You know, the telephone, this crazy machine that we carry around in our hand, and we all do it, not just kids, but it is something it's addictive, and it's something that they depend on, and it's going to get worse and worse.
yeah. Well, is there any advice you can give to the community that wants more than anything for RFK Jr. to get confirmed by the Senate? How do we get through to folks? I mean, you're a Republican. You know, we're really relying on the Republican members of Congress, many of which our community helped elect. Our greater community of, health conscious parents who want sovereignty and wellness for our children helped elect some of these senators. It's a big community out there, and they're seeing what's happening, and they're just like, how do we get through? We're so desperate to reach individuals like Mike Pence and Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell and just get them to see the light.
Well, first of all, we have a lot of problems in this country, and it all starts with family. Family in this country. There's very few young men at the end of my coaching, which was what 7, 8 years ago. Uh, Very few of the kids that were on my football teams had one or no parent, and I was actually their parent. First time they'd had anybody tell them yes or no, other than their high school coaches that they played for, and it, it we have a parenting problem. We have a problem of leadership for these kids at young ages. But again, it's a tough problem, and as I've told Bobby Kennedy, you're walking into a hornet's nest because you're getting ready to deal with people that have a lot of money that don't want to quit drugging our kids across the country. They want to make money instead of helping make young people better socially, and treat them if they need to be treated, but treat them the right way. But uh, we're between a rock and a hard place right now. And
Yeah.
again, you said I was Republican. I'm a Republican, but I'm an American. I believe that we're a strong country, but we're only as strong as our values. And we have lost our values, but it also usually starts at home.
Yeah, it starts at home. So maybe everyone at home can look to some of these senators who are on the fence and call out and ask for a little bit of help. I'm a child of a single mother. Very hard circumstance, was on government assistance for part of my childhood. And it was coaches. I was an athlete. It was coaches that got me through some hard times. So thank you to you, coach, and all the great coaches out there for helping raise kids these days. And let's hope that, we can get RFK Jr. in and help some of these parents out, because the reason why they're going to pharmaceuticals is because that's what the doctors are telling them is available to them. And that's what the government is telling them is available to them. That is their guidance today. And so, it does start at home, but we're in a bit of a tango as well with all of you senators out there.
Yeah. No, there needs, but we have to get people like Robert Kennedy across the goal line. You know why? Because he's different. He's different. Pete Hegseth, they have experience, they understand it, but they're not the deep state. And do we have a deep state up here? It is really deep,
Yeah.
and it goes on both sides of the fence, and it's not just one-sided. And again, it's all about doing what's right for our country. But we're on the wrong path. But we're on the right path in some areas, but some's not going to get it done. And again, when the leadership in your country, as you just said, are your coaches in high school and college, something's wrong. We need that leadership, but that shouldn't be our only leadership. It should be, even politicians should be leaders. And but this is a place up here that it's people like to stay, and they like to stay too long, and it's unfortunate.
And they're staying for the wrong reasons sometimes.
Right.
Well, bless you, Senator Tuberville, for hanging with us all out here in the United States, praying every day for all of you guys to be guided by the light of goodness, and may we please course correct on the chronic health issue. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. It's time for a new direction. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.